This episode is presented by Silversea.
From Kurtco Media. Coming up on the show.
You know, I never ate camel. So I talked to one of the guys there and I said, well, we want to do something with camel. So I thought they're going to bring 5 pounds. They brought a quarter of a camel to the restaurant. It was like 120 pounds,
That's Chef Wolfgang Puck. I'm Bruce Wallen, and this is Travel That Matters. Hey everybody, and welcome to Travel That Matters. This is the podcast where we explore the world's most exceptional and meaningful travel experiences. If you're new to the show, I'm Bruce Wallen. I'm your host. I've been a magazine editor and writer for many years, covering travel for everyone from Robb Report to National Geographic. And on the show, I talk with some of the fascinating people that I have met along the way about their travels, their travel stories, and how travel has influenced them. Today, I'm very excited. It is the first episode of our new Master Chef series. If you missed the first Master Chef series, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to a couple episodes. We had Marcus Samuelsson, Daniel Boulud, Gail Simmons, Curtis Stone, and many, many other great culinary leaders. This season, we have Nancy Silverton, Danny Meyer, and many others. And, of course, today we are kicking things off with the one and only Wolfgang Puck. Wolfgang needs no intro, but I will say he is just as fun to interview as you would expect. And he's going to tell some great stories, and he's going to take us all the way from Indianapolis to Ethiopia on his adventures. He's also going to tell us about the happy accident that led to the creation of his most famous dish. I'm going to tell a little story about a souvenir that I picked up in Wolfgang's homeland of Austria. So be sure to stick around until the end for that. And as always, we really appreciate a like, a subscribe, a follow if you're enjoying the show. For now, let's get to it with the world famous chef, Wolfgang Puck. Wolfgang Puck, thank you for joining us on Travel That Matters. It's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure. I love to travel, and I have to travel. Some people think they don't have to travel, only on vacation.
So I actually want to talk to you about how that love started, because I think, as from a very early age, you were working all the time, it sounded like, in kitchens, and probably didn't have a lot of time to travel, probably didn't have a lot of money to travel.
Yeah.
So when was that first moment, that first trip that kind of captured that part of you?
When I was a kid, I looked when the sun was setting behind the mountains in Austria, and I said, wow, I want to go there where the sun is setting. And at that time, we didn't have a car, I didn't know how to get there, but I was sitting on a mountain and looking the sun go down. So I was always very excited. And then I moved like 50 miles away when I was 14. So at that time, 50 miles for me was a long travel. I never traveled anywhere for 50 miles. So, and then I moved to France, again another travel. And then over the ocean to the United States. So I was always traveling, maybe running away from some things at a certain point, especially when I was a kid, running away from my stepfather and then running farther away. But I think traveling was always in me. And I think if you're an immigrant, you're very positive generally. You cannot be negative if you're an immigrant and go to another place, because you have to think there's something better. So traveling, I think it's really the most important thing for me, because I love to learn, and traveling is the best university.
Okay, so you started in Austria, and you wanted to leave. You were eager to get away from your situation there. But Austria, really, you mentioned in the mountains and looking over the horizon, and I mean, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth, right? And so what landscapes and, architecture, location, whatever, what captures your imagination when you are traveling?
Well, I think there are so many things we can learn when we travel and see when we travel. To go to a new city and see all these buildings and so forth. Even like we opened a restaurant in Budapest. Budapest is next to Austria, where I grew up, but I was in Budapest. So I saw how beautiful the Danube is going through Budapest. It's actually more beautiful than Vienna. Even Budapest is a smaller city, really. And the Budapest castle on the other side on top. So it's really, for me, it was an experience. I said, this is really nice. And then we opened a Spago in a 120-year-old building, and also right next to the river. So I think it's really a great place, too.
How does a Spago? You mentioned you opened a Spago in Budapest in this historic building. How does a Spago in Budapest differ? Do they want the exact same thing that you find here in Beverly Hills, or like how do you go about that, creating a Spago in a location like Budapest?
Well, Spago is a brand, really. So we have to stay true to our concepts, the way we do things. We don't want to go to Hungary and do Hungarian food.
Right.
But we use Hungarian ingredients whenever we can. Like, I love to go to their market there, not far from the restaurant. They have this beautiful market, like great porcini or great fruits and vegetables. And I have a butcher there I go to see all the time, and he always gives me whatever he has saving. He saved some. I told him how to do dry aged beef, and so he's aging some beef now and everything. So I always go to see him and have a little brandy with him in the morning. So he always is ready. I think he drinks a lot, so he says, "Okay, cheers."
What are some of the local ingredients that you have? It is Spago, the menu, but clearly you're incorporating some of these local ingredients. What are some of the ingredients that you found in Budapest, for instance, that have kind of inspired you to include on a menu at Spago?
Well, there are certain people, for example, we make at Spago a pizza with prosciutto. I found a guy outside of Budapest in the countryside who makes amazing prosciutto and culatello. So they have really, in the early summer, great melons. So I use his culatello or his prosciutto with their melon and put it on the menu. But we have it here at Spago in Beverly Hills, maybe in the summertime too, because I used to get melon from the Chino farm and so forth. So I think we use the ingredients, but we make it in our style. Mm-hmm. So we have a few Hungarian dishes, which is like a goulash soup, which is like a soup they do with beef and potatoes and paprika, because paprika is really the main spice there. Even it wasn't born in Hungary, paprika, it came from the Middle East, I think from Persia or somewhere. But 100 years ago, they brought it there, and now Hungarian food is associated with paprika. So from chicken to beef to soups to fish stews. I remember we went on the border of the Danube. There's a little fish restaurant, and they use the fish from the river there, and it's hopefully pretty clean. And then they cook it over wood fire, and they just put water in, onion it, a lot of paprika, a little garlic, salt and pepper. That's it. And they boil it for 45 minutes, and you get their fish soup.
Wow, those are the types of experiences that just like stand out in your travels. Okay, let's go back to when you mentioned, first you went to France and then you came to the United States. Like, what was an experience like that in the U.S. for you, where it was, early in your time here, and it was just a moment where you thought, wow, this is a completely different place and a something I love.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because when I came to the U.S., I came to Indianapolis. And Indianapolis was not a food town like 50 years ago or so, in 74. So for me, it was very difficult there because you couldn't drink wine. And I remember I had a girlfriend. I bought a bottle of cheap Bordeaux. I opened it up, left it there, and she put a pipe and smoked the weed on the bottle. I said, "You're going to screw up my wine here. What are you doing?" So it's crazy. But I thought, I love auto racing. So I said, no, Indianapolis is going to be amazing because I lived in Monaco. So I said, it's going to be like Monaco probably. I arrived there with the Greyhound bus from New York, and I said, oh shit, this is nothing like Monaco.
Where'd you go after Indianapolis?
After Indianapolis, I came to LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
You worked elsewhere for years, but when you first opened Spago in West Hollywood, right near here, when was the first moment where you just realized you had this global sensation on your hands?
Never was it in my mind, because I remember before opening, Patrick, who owned Ma Maison, always fed the news to the Herald Examiner, which was then a second paper that doesn't exist anymore. And they used to write, Wolfgang is opening a pizza place, he's opening a spaghetti place or whatever. I was so nervous that nobody gonna show up. And Patrick told his staff and says, Wolfgang will be back in 3 months begging for his job because he cannot run a restaurant. So naturally, you're not sure, when you do a new business. So we built this restaurant with an open kitchen that didn't exist before. Obviously, coffee shop, they flip the burgers in front of you maybe, but not a white tablecloth restaurant. So, and we built this wood-burning pizza oven, didn't exist here. We built a wood-burning grill. Nobody cooked on a wood-burning grill at that time. And it was like theater. The kitchen was in the middle of the dining room, and I thought it would be great because I can look at the dining room, manage the dining room, and also the kitchen. And on top of it, everybody had to be quiet when they cook because the guests were right there. No swear words, no nothing. So I remember the first day when we opened up, I said, I hope somebody gonna come, and we had like 30 reservations, and I don't know how people knew about it. All of a sudden, the restaurant was full. Every table was full. And we only had one pizza guy, me on the grill doing vegetables and the grill and the side dishes. And then I had Casuto on the appetizers and Mark Peel, may he rest in peace, on the pasta station. And he was no light on the pasta at that time either. It was the first time he really made pasta. We cut the fettuccine by hand. Everything was done by hand. And Nancy Silverton was doing dessert. And then I told Nancy, just send everybody a big plate of dessert, all the desserts we make. And they saw this big thing coming on the table. They were not happy before, but once they saw all the desserts, they ate the desserts and said, great experience. But I could not sleep many nights because I said, how about if nobody shows up? How about if nobody shows up?
Well, okay, so here we are, many years later, and, California cuisine became a term kind of.
Yeah.
Because of these restaurants that you created, and you really were the pioneer of that genre. How has that evolved in the years since? Now it's, not just in your hands, but in many other great chefs' hands. Like, what is California cuisine today? What does that mean to you today?
Well, when I started Spago, I said, okay, what we're going to do? We're going to have different nationalities in one part or in one restaurant, really. And so I called it California cuisine. Why? California is a melting pot of so many different people, from the Far East, from Europe, from everywhere, and obviously with different cuisines. So we had appetizers like tuna sashimi with a little salad and a little caviar on top and everything. At that time, there was no Caucasian or French restaurant, American restaurant, whatever it was, who served raw fish. I remember I tried to make undercooked fish at Ma Maison at that time, and people sent it back and said, Wolfgang, your fish is not cooked. And I tried to tell them, it's better a little underdone. And they said, no, I want my fish well done and everything. So here I was serving sashimi. And, some people really loved it, and some people saw it raw and says, oh, my God, this is not cooked, So, and then I had like Peking style duck, and then we had lobster raviolis, and then we made pizzas, obviously. But I said, I don't want to make a pizza like they do in Naples or in Rome or somewhere like that. I want to do it my own way. So I remember when I started out I made it with Santa Barbara shrimps and a little pesto on it and not too much cheese on it. I made it with prosciutto. Instead of pepperoni, I made my own duck sausage. And then we used to make smoked salmon, I remember. And then one day we ran out of bread. So I said, okay, I'm just going to bake some pizza dough in the oven and serve it with it. And at the time where I was doing that, I said, well, I'm just going to put everything together. So I made another round of pizza, put it in the oven with some onions, a little olive oil on top, came out. I used my dill cream, which we used to serve with our smoked salmon, put the salmon on it, and then put some salmon eggs or black caviar on top, some chives, and I tasted it, and I said, Jesus, this is fucking great.
And now how many million people have had that dish?
I remember my son went to Manchester for football camp, soccer camp, Manchester United. We go to a restaurant, I look at the menu, I see Spago pizza. And smoked salmon, cream cheese, and caviar. I said, what's Spago? And the guy said, well, this is our version of the pizza. He couldn't even explain it to me. One time we went to Paul Bocuse's restaurant in Lyon, and I stand with Paul at the pass in one of his restaurants there. Out come a smoked salmon pizza. I said, Paul, what the heck is that? The smoked salmon pizza here? And he said, he showed me his menu. Spago pizza with smoked salmon and caviar and everything. So I said, oh, thank you. At least you gave me credit.
So, okay, that kind of fusing of cultures, you talked about Budapest. And every time you go to a new destination, you kind of go seek out those culinary experiences and those inspirations. Aside from Budapest, what's a destination that kind of just inspired you recently from a culinary standpoint, a new place that you went that was just, influenced you as a chef?
I love to go to different places, like when we go to Bahrain. Bahrain is a little island in the Middle East, a kingdom, but we found farmers there who farm vegetables in tents. Because it's so hot, instead of having heated, they have it refrigerated. And you get beets and carrots, and they are so proud of what they do. And now they tell everybody, Wolfgang is using our vegetables, our salad. So we always try to get the local community involved. And I think it's really, for us, it's really important. They even had an Austrian guy there who was raising goats, and he was making goat cheese. So we had local goat cheese in the middle of the desert. Now we opened a restaurant in Riyadh. I never ate camel. So I talked to one of the guys there, and I said, well, we want to do something with camel. So I thought they're going to bring 5 pounds. They brought a quarter of a camel to the restaurant. It was like 120 pounds, So we had to debone it and use it. So we said, okay, what we're going to do? Well, the first thing, we made a camel pizza. So we ground up the meat and added some fat, because on the hump there's a lot of fat. If there's no fat, it's dry. And made that. We made a bolognese sauce with the camel. We made a camel goulash, which didn't turn out that well because it took forever to cook, and I think I was impatient maybe.
Wait, you have to tell us, what is camel? That is one thing I haven't ever tried. What is it? Is it comparable to something, the texture?
Yeah, it's maybe in between beef and lamb or something, like an old lamb maybe. It has a stronger flavor. Even they used to raise them also for that. Yeah. But even there, camels is used for special occasions. Okay. They use it. But they braise everything forever. They cook it with rice. It's very famous there. And lamb, they do like that. So they cook everything, roast it or cook it forever.
So another place that is incredibly interesting from a cultural perspective and a culinary perspective is Ethiopia, where your wife, Galila, is from.
Yeah.
Do you go back there with your wife and your sons? Is that a place? And like, what has that experience been like?
Well, my wife wants me to go for the holidays, and I said, I'm going skiing. I'm Austrian, But we went there. We actually have an orphanage there, which Galila started with a friend of hers outside of Addis. And they started with like 24 kids, because during the pandemic of AIDS, Ethiopia was one of the most important places where you had the most cases, And so there were a lot of kids without parents. And so she started that orphanage. She's still supporting it, still going there. That's why she wants to go there now again. But when we go there, Ethiopia is really interesting because the people are super nice, and there is amazing places to go to. Like there's a place called Lalibela. It's in the north, like an hour north of Addis by plane. And they have I think 13 churches carved into the mountain. So you go into the mountain, it's like a building in the mountain, which is really amazing. And they have many of them. And the last one is all the way on top. You have to hike up 2 hours. I went, my wife didn't go to that. The food there, the traditional food, you get the same thing everywhere. Like we had dinner at my wife's grandmother's house. It was this chicken dish, the beef dish, and the injera everybody has, which is their bread. And then we go to a restaurant, it's the same thing. And then we went to a restaurant, I forgot the name. who tried to do modern Ethiopian food, but it wasn't that good, I think so.
Another thing with your wife, you got married Sardinia? No, Capri. You got married in Capri. So, but that part of the world, I know. I've heard you talk about Sardinia, Capri, a lot of that. What is it about that part of the world? Very different than some of the places we've been talking about. What is it that you guys love about that?
Well, I think Sardinia and Capri, southern Italy, is probably one of the most beautiful places you can go to on a vacation, and the food is great. The wine is amazing. So I think when we got married in Capri, the reason was I have never been in Capri and Galila has never been in Capri. So we got married there and had a big party. I said, at least not too many people are going to show up. And still we had 160 guests coming, from all over. And then we spent some time every year there. And we went across to the mainland, which is like half an hour by boat or something. And there's one of my favorite restaurants there. It's called Lo Scoglio. And Antonia is the owner, and she's amazing. And they have the best fish there and really traditional Italian food. So like the eggplant dumplings they have, and then they have the whole fish cooked with olive oil, and they have great lemon there and the little white wine just baked in the oven. And not to forget the pasta with zucchini, which is famous there, and they have the torta caprese, a chocolate almond cake, which is amazing. So it is really one of my favorite restaurants. And you go during the day with the boat. It's beautiful, beautiful day. You anchor right at the restaurant. You walk up the steps, and you're in the restaurant on the terrace
so is it
over the sea.
Yeah, on the cliff, like one of those that's built into the cliffs, and you're over. Man, yes, okay. Now I'm getting very hungry.
Now you have to go there.
What La Scoglio?
Lo Scoglio.
Lo Scoglio. Okay, and what area is that?
It's in Nerano. It's called Nerano. It's where Positano is, and all Ravello, Positano, and so forth. So it's right across from Capri.
And so you mentioned Antonia, was that her name? So she's the woman who runs this place.
Yeah.
You are known as someone, certainly, if you go to dinner at Spago in Beverly Hills, there's a good chance that Wolfgang Puck is going to walk out and talk to every single customer in that restaurant, which is amazing. I mean, as someone, for guests, I think, especially people coming in from out of town, it adds to that experience. Is that something you seek out, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant, like having Antonia be such a big part of that restaurant?
I always go look for the kitchen. I always go to look who is in charge of it. And I remember when I went the first time to Lo Scoglio, I didn't know Antonia. I saw her walking around. I didn't know her. I didn't know the chef, but I knew her grandmother. Her grandmother was the cashier. So, and then when you get the bill, you had to go up to her, and she said, it's cash or credit card. And I didn't know why I said cash, so I took out my euros. She took the euros and put it in her bra, and she was like 80 years old. It was so funny. I said, what the heck is she doing? And then...
and you've been going back there ever since.
And we have going back there ever since, yeah.
What's another restaurant that you've been to lately that's done that so well? That place sounds like the perfect example, but is there another place that's just the people, the food, the setting, everything?
We were in Singapore, and we went to this restaurant in the Marina Bay Sands, Wakuda. Yeah, for sure they know me there. But to my surprise, they opened a bottle of my Schrader Cabernet, which I made with Thomas Brown, who was the winemaker for Schrader and still is. And we had Kobe beef with them. And I said, just make me something. But I was so shocked when they brought my wine. And you know what? When I made the wine in 2007, I said, it's too big, the California Cabernets. But it aged so beautiful because I sent it there right away, and I never had it in 5-6 years. I didn't taste my wine. I thought we are out of it. We don't have it here in LA. And it was like such a great experience to go to a French restaurant, really, but to get your wine and have the best beef.
So so let's talk a little bit about your wine. What types of wines do you produce, do you offer, and then how did you get into that business?
Well, I think maybe I could have been a winemaker or something like that. I love the idea of farming. If it's vegetables, if it's a vineyard, if it's an orange or olive grove, whatever it is. I think because I grew up on a farm, I'm really attached to the earth. So when I started making wine, it was really at the beginning up in Santa Barbara with Brewer Clifton. They made some Pinot and some Chardonnay for us. And then the first one really was an expensive wine, was with Schrader. Then one of my favorite producers, winemakers in Austria is FX Spiegler. He makes Riesling and Grüner Veltliner, and it's really amazing. So when I went to see him at the winery, I said, why don't we do a project together? So we walked with him in the vineyards and everything, and this all steep terraces on the border of the Danube, and so he said, okay, let's make a Riesling and the Grüner, and was something we didn't really have it here at that time. Now obviously everybody knows about it. And I'm very happy to be involved with people who are really good at what they do. So that's really exciting. And FX and now his son Lucas, they run one of the best wineries and they make one of the best Rieslings and Grüner Veltliner. And especially their M is amazing.
I'll have to try that. One of the best travel souvenirs I have is from Austria. I was in Austria at the Riedel factory and I bought Grüner Veltliner glasses. So I have glasses specifically for Grüner
with
Veltliner.
The green stem.
With the green stem, exactly.
Yeah.
So I have to try your Grüner Veltliner. So I have a personal affinity for Austria. When you go back there, what do you like? I know you have kind of conflicted emotions about Austria, but what do you love about going back there?
Well, I love to go to Vienna, for example, because it's such a cultural city. It's so rich in culture and everything, from the 1800, 1900 and so forth. Vienna was a huge city at that time because it was the center of Middle Europe. So everybody was there, from music to medicine, and everything was in Vienna. So there's still a lot of things there. But now it's exciting again because a lot of young people are living in Vienna. When I was like 19 or 15 years old or something, it felt like a city was like dying off a little bit. But now has great energy and great food now. I think I went to one of my favorite restaurants there. It's called Steirereck. I know the family for the longest time. I know the father. Now the son runs it. It's a 2-star restaurant, but it's relaxing and everything. And what I like about it, they have dishes like tradition and innovation. So you can get the best Wiener Schnitzel or the best goulash or the best Beuschel, which is like a stew with lungs and heart and everything in it, very traditional Viennese. And then if you want to get something more international, they have it also. But also they have this amazing Viennese desserts, like they had Mohn noodle, for example. This is like a gnocchi with poppy seeds crushed with sugar and a little cinnamon in it, and then they roll it all in butter and eat it with a little plum compote on the side. Or they have Kaiserschmarrn or Palatschinken in a modern way, but still tasty. So you still can feel like you are in Vienna. And there's probably one of the best restaurants in Vienna too. It's called Amador, and they are really amazing. And they built the restaurant in an old wine cellar, so it's all made out of brick with the rounded ceiling and everything. It's really, really beautiful. And I think you always also can say, okay, make me something Viennese. I don't want just international food.
So Amador, and what was the other restaurant?
Steirereck. Steirereck is in the Stadtpark, which is a beautiful park, like Central Park, but much smaller. And the family runs it. The husband is in the kitchen, the wife is in the front of the house, the kids help up sometimes. So it's really nice to see that. And if you have time, you can go to Pogosh. They have a restaurant in the middle of the countryside in the mountains, like at 5,000 feet high. And people come there with the helicopters, they drive there and everything, and you see the sheep, the cows, everything all around, and they use everything what they grow there for the restaurant. And now they even have a few rooms too, so it's really great.
Pogosh?
Pogosh.
Yeah. And is this a separate town, or is it just outside of Vienna?
It's outside, it's in Styria.
Okay.
It's like a 2-hour drive from Vienna.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay, so Vienna, where's one other spot that you like to go?
You have to go to Salzburg. Salzburg is really a beautiful city, and if you're lucky enough, you go for the music festival in the summer, which is the most famous music festival anywhere, I think so, for classic music, opera and everything, because everything is small. It's no big venues with thousands of people. There are maybe 300 people in one room, and you hear you can listen to the best orchestras in the world. And then to go to the Hotel Goldener Hirsch, which is like an old style hotel, traditional, with traditional Austrian food, or you go down south to Werfen, which is a small town 45 minutes from there. Also great is next to Salzburg, you have all these beautiful lakes, and one lake is named after me. It's called Wolfgangsee. Okay. Not named after, it was way before me, hundreds of years, but it's beautiful there, and it's very traditional, and I go there. If I go on a big food vacation, I have to lose weight. So it's a company or a hotel, they're called Meyer Life. Mm-hmm. And you go there, you get very little food and pay a lot of money for it.
Strict,
but
very strict.
Very strict, yes, no alcohol, no coffee, no nothing. Yeah. So it's a tough 2 weeks, but then it makes you feel good because you lost a few pounds.
So you go eat at the Goldener Hirsch. Yeah. By the way, I did eat at the restaurant there, and I had a goose. Yeah. That was, the best goose. One of the only times I've eaten goose, but it was incredible. That is a great hotel, great restaurant, wonderful city. But yes, I could have used a week at the strict wellness clinic after that. How have we've talked about your early travels, we've talked about your more recent travels to Capri and Sardinia and Budapest. How have your if it's just a vacation, you're not working, how have your tastes changed over the years? What do you love to do now?
Well, I still like to travel, sometimes for food, sometimes for history. Like this summer, for example, we were in Turkey, and Turkey is really an amazing place too. We always go on vacation there on a boat near Bodrum and go check down south. And they have very good wines now, very great food, and more than just shish kebabs and things like that. But then finally, I made the pilgrimage to Copenhagen to go to Noma. And I think they had the vegetable menu, because in the early summers or in the summer they have a vegetarian menu, like 15 courses or 18 courses or whatever. But the food was amazing. But they had all these natural wines. And I don't know what these sommeliers have up their ass, I would say, to have all these natural wines, but they're terrible. Most of them are terrible. I go to a restaurant like Noma, one of the most famous restaurants in the world. I tell you, if I would go back, or I would drink water, or I would bring my own wine, or hopefully look at their wine list. I would never tell them, okay, do a wine pairing. I think I had nothing, not one wine where I said, wow, this is really interesting. Right. I remember we had a Riesling from Slovakia, and it was cloudy and everything, and the guy tried to explain me, this guy loves sake, and he's doing similar like that. I said, but sake is brewed, it's not done the same way, but I don't know, they had all these stories about it. But the food was amazing.
Okay, I have to ask you about skiing. You mentioned you're Austrian, so you don't want to go to Ethiopia over the holidays, you want to go skiing over the holidays. Yes. So where do you like to ski?
We skied only once in Austria, in Zürs and Lech, on the Alpberg, which is one of the most amazing places.
In the world, for sure.
The food is great, the after-ski is great, and I think it's really so different there, because every hotel is owned by a family. So you feel like you're part of the family, so it's really nice. And also, the lift tickets are maybe $80. Right. And, here they're $280. It's like crazy, because the hotels, the farmers, they own the mountain. And I don't know who is building the lifts and everything, but they get part of the money in the wintertime too. So it's really great that they can stay in business, that not a big corporation has taken over everything,
Well, I think in Lech too, you see that where there's no McDonald's, there's no anything like that. It just feels... for an American perspective, like it feels Austrian, 100%, and it really has that kind of magically. When I went there, I realized this is what all those architectural styles you see in Mammoth or in wherever. This is what it's
in
copying.
Vail is like the Disneyland of this.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
try to imitate an Austrian ski village, and it's really over there is really true because everything is hundreds of years old. When you go back, like before the First World War, where only farmers, they had a house with a few rooms, they rented them out. People were doing Nordic ski, and they're doing going ski. They had maybe one little chairlift or one little lift to schlep you up the mountain. And now the evolution is amazing. I mean, you have great restaurants, great food. Like there is a hotel, it's called the Hospice in St. Christoph. They have the biggest wine cellar of any restaurant I ever said. They have a whole room, I don't know how big, only with magnums and bigger bottles. I mean, he was probably the biggest wine collector. He had special bottles made for his restaurant hotel.
And what I love about skiing in Lech in Austria or Italy is that can be your lunchtime. I remember skiing there and then going across the street to the Hotel Arlberg and having this incredible lunch with wine and everything like that. And maybe you go back out and ski again in the afternoon. Maybe you don't. But it's really a culinary experience as well as an outdoor.
I had that in Pachla Gulch. We had a restaurant at the Ritz-Carlton in Pachla Gulch.
Right, okay.
Spago was right on the bottom of the ski lift. And when we were there with the family, like we started late, it's vacation. I didn't get up at 8 and be the first one out there, no matter how good the snow was, So by the time we went on the mountain, it was like 10 maybe. And then we skied until 2. And then we went to Spago, stopped for lunch. And, I opened my ski boots and everything. And then I had the truffle pasta with a little Pinot Noir or something, or a little Barolo. And then after a while, after an hour, the kids said, okay, we have to leave. I said, okay, you leave. I'm going to have another glass of wine. And I think that's really what is great about a vacation. And that's what they do so much better in Europe. Here you're on the half of the mountain up there. You have all these cantinas with, you stand in line to get your hot dog, your hamburger and everything. But people don't take the time to enjoy time.
Stepping back and enjoying your time, a very important part of travel in general. So, well, Wolfgang, that's been fascinating talking to you. We so appreciate you joining us. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll continue to travel.
And now for the Wallen wrap-up.
What an honor that was, interviewing Wolfgang Puck for the show. He's awesome. He's great in person. He's great. And in his restaurants, if you've ever been to one of his restaurants, you've probably seen him there. He's somehow at all of them all the time. I don't know how he does it, but his personality is a big part of why he has been so successful. We talked a little bit about Austria, his homeland, and that is really one of my personal favorite destinations in the world. The first time I went there is when I picked up that little strange souvenir that I mentioned, Gruner Veltliner glasses from Riedel. Now, that sounds ridiculous, and before the trip, I would have thought it was ridiculous to have glasses specifically designed for Gruner Veltliner, a great wine from Austria. I changed my mind on that trip, and here's why. Okay, so I was there with Riedel to help design a glass for rum, for high-end rum. Okay, I don't know why I wasn't particularly qualified for this role, but I was writing a story about it. Zacapa Rum from Guatemala and Riedel put together this event where about 10 people from around the world got together and tasted Zacapa Rum in all these different glasses to determine which shape, which style was the best for rum. And we walked into this conference room in the mountains of Austria at 10 a.m., and in front of all of our chairs were, like, I think 7 rows of 3 glasses of rum. So 21 totally different shapes and sizes and styles. And each one was filled with exactly 1 ounce of Zacapa rum. And mind you, it was 10 in the morning and I was jet lagged because I'd just gotten in the night before. We tasted every single one of them. And we were spitting, of course, but even, 21 glasses of rum, even when you're spitting, is going to have an effect on you. But I'll tell you, it was not mind-blowing. That's maybe an exaggeration, but it was seriously eye-opening, the difference that you can taste, the difference in taste that you experience with different shapes. Now, one would be all you would get is the alcohol. The next one you would get only sweet. And every once in a while, you would get one that just for whatever reason, the shape, the way it hit your tongue, the way it hit your nose, all those things came together and just made it perfect. And so, one of our parting gifts were these Gruner Veltliner glasses, which again, like, do I really need to only drink Gruner Veltliner in these glasses? Probably not. I'll drink Sauvignon Blanc and others, but I have admittedly become a wine glass snob when it comes to different types of wine. I can't drink a good wine out of a plastic cup or anything like that anymore. And it really, it's changed the way I view it. Not the most important thing in the world, I realize, but it is something that I might have at one point thought was kind of BS. And then I was completely changed by that trip. Not the kind of life-changing trips we typically talk about here, but, fun all the same. And what a cool experience to be at the Riedel factory and taste all these different rums. So anyways, I still have the rum glasses, and I still have my Gruner Veltliner glasses. And I've been in love with Wolfgang's homeland of Austria ever since. Travel That Matters is produced and edited for Kurtco Media by AJ Mosley. Marketing by Katrin Skapertis. For more information on the destinations we talked about today, please check out our show notes or visit kurtco.com/travel that matters. We would love to hear from you, so please leave us a comment on YouTube, or if you're listening on the podcast, please write to us at bruce@kurtco.com. That's Bruce at curtco.com.